Hi, my name is Raquel Thomas. I work for Grantmakers for Girls of Color. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, and I am living on the indigenous lands of the Muskogee people.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I like to think of my identity outside of the roles that I hold in society, outside of the obligations that I have for other people. So I like to call myself a dreamer, and I like to thrive in my multiplicity. I am a musician, I am an artist, I'm a writer, I am a sister, I am a friend, I am a servant leader, and I'm a cultural worker committed to the prosperity of marginalized people across the globe.
Will you share examples of when you were the subject of a story that somebody else was telling?
Throughout my life, I have been given the opportunity to be interviewed by national and state level newspapers and websites, particularly interested in interviewing me for educational purposes or to highlight my experience of having an incarcerated parent in the US carceral system.
Can you share whether they were able to capture and tell your story the way that you wanted it to be told? What went right? What went wrong?
I think that it's unfortunate to say that these articles written on behalf of me missed the mark. To share my narrative is something that places me in a position of vulnerability. And so, being that someone is listening to my expression and then writing on behalf of me, there's a level of trust that I had with these people. And then when I am able to read the article, I find that I have been misrepresented in what I shared with the reporters, irrespective of their identity. And I feel that it has impacted my willingness to want to share with reporters because I'm unsure of whether or not I'm going to have to be disappointed after really bearing my soul to someone, hoping that through me sharing my narrative, other people see themselves. And so there's been an issue where I share my story and then I don't see the article. So say for example, the article was published in August. The person who interviewed me didn't send me the article until December. And they said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to send this to you." To feel forgotten as a person who has the experience of being a child of an incarcerated parent already excavates feelings of lack of worthiness that I might have already been carrying. So when I'm sharing my lived experience and it is so unimportant that the author forgets to show me what they collected from me, it made me feel like I was just being interviewed to get for a means to an end, or I was just being interviewed so that the reporter could publish this story. In my lived experience as a Southern Black woman, I think that storytelling is a true art. I think of West African traditions of oral history that griots championed and that allowed the role of griot or storyteller to be something that is deemed special in the community and society. So when approached by writers to share my story, I think of it as a true honor. And it is like, it has given me the opportunity to preserve my narrative, not just for my ego, but for my legacy and hopefully having an impact on a reader that might have a similar lived experience to me. So I think of it as serious and I think of it as special. And being that each time that I've shared my narrative that I am unsatisfied, I feel like I have a right to be dissatisfied because this is not a favor that I'm doing for someone else. This is me being part of a legacy that is greater than myself. And it's also a legacy that is a historical tradition extending to, like I mentioned, West African societies pre-enslavement of people in African countries. And that tradition of being a griot or being a storyteller has extended throughout generations. But I feel that when narratives aren't preserved in a way that satisfies the storyteller, I think it just discredits their role and what they're bringing to the article or to the journal that their interview is featured in.
That's really beautiful. And I agree with that. So one thing that we're hoping to do is to honor and credit rather than discredit and dishonor when we collect stories of communities that we are connected with and who that we're trying to serve. What will you do so that those stories are collected in an honorable way? And how would you consider that successful? How would you measure success when storytelling? How would you define it as successful?
I think that if at the beginning of the experience, if I were to know the clear purpose of the article, that would have created a foundation of trust, which is essential to any fruitful relationship, because trust can be the catalyst for productive conversations. And in those productive conversations, it's imperative that those involved are committed to active listening rather than asking questions just to breeze through the interview, because you want to hold space that validates the vulnerability that is being shared with you. And I think that I believe that writers should understand how special it is to be holding someone else's narrative and to take that seriously so that they handle it with care.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. Is there any advice you would give to a reporter or somebody who's gathering somebody else's story?
Although many people have lived through similar things across the globe, individuals are not monoliths. I think that it is so imperative for storytellers to be mindful of the many different intersections of people's identities so that they know how to covet and honor the stories of that individual. I think that being mindful of someone's intersections of their identities, it restores dignity and it helps uplift this person who is being incredibly vulnerable so that they know that they are moving from a space of strength. And I think that it is imperative for storytellers, writers, researchers to understand that they have a level of responsibility to protect the people who they are interacting and engaging with, so that it becomes a mutual relationship built on reciprocity and love that every member of our global community deserves.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Raquel.
Thank you.